Today's episode is brought to you by the Academy for Virtual Teaching. Every solopreneur recognizes that feeling of exhaustion. There are limited hours in the day and only one of you to go around. You want to scale your income, but Hermione just won't let you borrow her time travel necklace. If you are a creative, a designer, maker, retailer, or educator, the Academy for Virtual Teaching invites you to learn how online workshops and educational videos can bring in passive income, create a loyal community of fans who are willing to support you with their dollars. We invite you to join us for a 2-week free trial at A4VT.com. That's the number 4, VT.com. Explore our free courses, say hello to a supportive community of virtual teachers, check out our equipment reviews, or attend a live seminar with experts in our industry. You can find the Academy for Virtual Teaching at A4VT.com. Thank you so much, the Academy for Virtual Teaching. And now, here's the show. Welcome to episode 221 of the Craft Industry Alliance podcast. I'm Abby Glassenberg. Craft Industry Alliance is a community for craft professionals where you can strengthen your creative business, stay up to date on industry news, and build connections within our supportive trade association. Check it out at craftindustyalliance.org. Today on the show, we are talking about creating a craft kit and workshop business with my guest, Morgan Spenla. Morgan is the founder and CEO of Crafter and the Crafter's Box. Crafter.com is an online home for makers offering educational videos, kits, patterns, and community. The Crafter's Box is a monthly subscription exploring new crafting mediums such as printmaking, fiber arts, woodworking, even a series of workshops in basket weaving. Today, Crafter supports artisans full circle by partnering with small business suppliers, legacy manufacturers, and accomplished teachers to bring curation and quality to makers worldwide. Morgan Spenla, welcome.
Hi, thank you so much for having me, Abby.
Yeah, thank you for being here. I've admired the Crafter's Box for several years now, and I think it's really a beautiful business, and I'm very excited to hear more about how it came to be and all the steps along the way. Before we do that, though, let's just kind of go back a little while, because I know you didn't start out your career in craft. When you were growing up, were you crafty? Did you enjoy making things, or did that come to you kind of a little bit later in life?
You know, really early, I probably, like every kid, found a lot of joy and comfort in crafting. And my mom was super crafty, and she was our campfire girl, kind of like Girl Scouts leader, and she ran Life Lab at my school, and she was always working with her hands, making, beautiful things, whether it was in the soil or cooking or with crafts. And I think through that observation, I realized just what a what's the word I'm looking for? Just a thoughtful and, nourishing area crafting could be for you. And that's where it really became a hobby for me. Is as I was growing up, I leaned on crafting as a creative escape. And it just grew from there.
Okay, great. So you were crafty. And then when you went to college, what did you sort of have in mind for yourself as a career?
Ooh, yeah. So definitely nothing in the crafting world for sure.
Okay.
That's like the separation of hobby and, and business, or hobby and career. But I went to school for business. I ended up getting a degree from USC, an interdisciplinary degree through their philosophy and their business school in business leadership and ethics. And I was very sure from actually a very young age, I did know this, that I wanted to go into business, and I wanted to, when I was younger, I wanted to, work for a massive corporation. And as I grew up, and I went into school, I wanted to really do my own thing and eventually start and run my own business as I had seen, parents and peers and, friends, parents, and so forth do. So that's what I went into school to pursue.
And were you like entrepreneurial? Were you, as a kid, were you one of those people who made things and sold them, or tried to start a business in high school and that kind of thing?
Yeah, I mean, a little, maybe not on the entrepreneurial side. I always had a job I remember from the moment I think that my town in Northern California allowed, or maybe it's a state law, but I think it was 14, you could have a job. And I was probably on my 14th birthday. I walked down to the local pizzeria and applied and had a job every Sunday morning, making pizzas. And I always had that work ethic about me where I always had something going on the keeping busy side and making money side. And, I always had an internship every semester of college. And that to this day is the advice that I give any incoming freshman ready to go to school. Don't be overly busy, but go try different things in a safe space, like an internship where you can walk away and there's no harm done. I quickly realized the types of companies I did and didn't want to work for, the industries I was willing to spend time in, and the industries that were not good matches. But having something going on the employment side was instilled from a very, very young age. And I'm sure I did all the lemonade stands and so forth as well. On the entrepreneur side, I definitely experimented with a few businesses when I was younger before really landing in what is, my now business home, I guess you could say.
Yeah. And so those internships in college, they sounded really important. And you were saying that it helped you to understand what you did and didn't want to do. Can you share some of the sort of insights that you gained from that? Like what kinds of industries were interesting after those experiences, and what kinds were you like, not for me?
Yeah, definitely. So a couple of the internships, most of them lived in the business world. So I was very interested in investment banking. And for a semester, I worked for a hedge fund advisor who had me, mark trending stock charts. And I very quickly learned his office was on Rodeo Drive in Los Angeles. And so the clientele, it was intriguing. It was great for people watching. I learned so much on the stock market side. I actually played around in the stock market quite a bit in college. And when I finally launched Crafter, I was able to use a little bit of what I had learned in investing to self-fund the business from the get-go with I'm talking like a little tiny nest egg that, allowed me to build the website or something like that. But it felt very empowering to know that, that I had learned this skill. I didn't want to become an investment banker, but I had learned this skill that I would carry, with me, or just an interest, I suppose, in this area, that I got to continue to take advantage of, for years to come. But back in college, it was, learning self-discipline, when the market's open, you're at your desk. And there's certain professional etiquette that is learned in an investment banking setting. I worked for a magazine for a little bit. That was really interesting on the editorial and business side. I worked for a real estate developer to learn more about real estate investing. I did a whole gamut of very sort of related, but different types of internships that, allowed me to have a lot of different bosses and colleagues and just, and learn and absorb and be the sponge that you should be when you're 18 years old and trying to figure out, what you want to do.
Yeah, that's great, because one of the questions I had at that age, or even coming out of college, was what do grown-ups do at work? Like I had no idea, and I became a teacher mostly because I knew about that. But I think it's so valuable. That sounds great to have like understood all different aspects of what grown-ups do at work before making your own decisions. So what kind of after college, what kind of career did you have before founding Crafter?
Yeah, so I applied to all different kinds of jobs in the corporate world, and I ended up landing at a consulting firm. And I really heavily pursued this job and was super excited to have been offered a position. It was a consulting firm that worked with a variety of different large-scale enterprise-sized corporations. And to me, what was so intriguing about that is this opportunity to not just work for one business or company, but to be inserted in these different environments and to learn from, about the different organizational structures and leadership and, the everyday tasks of these different types of companies. So what the consulting firm did is we implemented software. There's a large enterprise resource planning software tool called SAP. And without making that super boring, it essentially is the software spine that runs an entire company from inventory management to general ledger. And by getting to do that, I was on the training and change management side. So I am by no means a developer or in IT, or that's not my expertise. But I learned how to work with people. I learned how to introduce something that was going to drastically change the way that they did their everyday processes, how to manage that change, how to market. And eventually what came out of that was this joy of the marketing side of showing a new feature and showing the benefits of it and realizing how that could potentially change the way someone did their everyday job or, beyond that. So I did that for a few years. It had me traveling quite a bit for the first few years out of college. I got married to my husband the month after I graduated college. He was in the military and he was deployed to Japan 2 weeks later. And so this was a wonderful distraction. Like I lived for 3 months on the East Coast, and then I was transferred to a big project in San Diego. And that's actually how I landed in San Diego and started to develop, roots in San Diego. And it certainly didn't hurt that when my husband came back from his deployment in Japan, he was also stationed in San Diego. And that's where we, started life.
Okay. Wow. Yeah, that's pretty neat. Good experience to have when you're young and you can do that sort of thing. Okay. So, were you, turning to creativity in your, extra hours after work at that point, or was making things sort of not part of your story at that point in your life?
Yes. So I think that's where I felt the value of creativity the most. So I was in the trenches of a very technically oriented job and using no, I shouldn't say zero creativity, but very little creativity in my day-to-day job. It was a great right out of school job. It taught me a lot. I landed really well in terms of just, exactly what I was, thought I was looking for post-college. But I would use all of the extra side hours to get my brain out of that and into something that was much more tactile and involved, the other side of my brain. And so that's where creativity really flourished for me. I loved, at the time, my husband and I had just purchased this little 100-year-old, it's 85-year-old Spanish bungalow, historic home in the heart of this adorable little neighborhood in San Diego that needed to be totally gutted, if not torn down to the few, structurally awesome walls that made it this sweet Spanish bungalow, because it hadn't been touched in decades and decades and decades. So that became my creative project. We rebuilt the whole thing from the inside out together. He has a background in construction and architecture, and I did all the drawings for it, and chose and that was my creative outlet at the time. And that was when blogging was really kind of just becoming a thing. And I documented and the process of it. And I learned a lot about, they certainly weren't called influencers back then. But I learned a lot about the industry of, putting creative projects online and what went into that.
Oh, interesting. I didn't realize there was a craft blog, not a craft blog, but a home decor, home renovation, I guess, blog that predated Crafter. What do you know? Do you feel comfortable telling us what it was called?
It was called Pepper Design Blog. And at this point in time, it's 15 years old and it hasn't been touched in probably 10 years. But it was such a joyous outlet for me at the time. And I really, really loved talking about home renovation and why we were choosing. It was a historical home, so we were trying to make historically accurate updates for it, and we were learning as we went, for sure. Then when I had my first daughter, it kind of became a semi-parenting blog, and it was a way for my family and friends to just see what was going on. We weren't living in either of our hometowns, so it was a great way to just share what we were doing and how I was preparing for my daughter's first birthday and making all the handmade party hats and food and all of that fun stuff.
Yeah, that's great.
That was an early effort in online creativity.
Yeah, no, but that's great because you learn so much about like what you enjoy doing, about photography, about what resonates with people, about writing online and building a community online. And those early days of blogging back in like the mid 2000, like 2007, 8, whatever, around that time, it was a smaller community. It was before social media. And so you could really build a community just through writing on a blog.
You really could. And it was a very warm community. I mean, everybody was so supportive of each other. There was, you just got really thoughtful, kind feedback from people. It was a different world from probably blogging today. Maybe I don't blog anymore, but I really enjoyed, telling those stories and sharing my fun ideas, and then hearing from the community, that online blogging community that was building up around me, what people thought was really fun, and helping people one-on-one with this, making the same handmade felted owl costume that I made my daughter the year before.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
It was fun. I want to take a minute now to talk with our sponsor, Lyric Kennard from the Academy for Virtual Teaching.
My name is Lyric Montgomery Kennard, and I am with the Academy for Virtual Teaching.
And what is the Academy for Virtual Teaching?
We are the most amazing community of business people who use online education as a vital part of our business, or as just an add-on. It's pretty amazing what online workshops or short educational videos can do to add passive income, to build an amazing community of fans who adore you. It's really, virtual teaching is here to stay. We've been through a pandemic, and people know how virtual teaching works now, so they are all over it. And at the Academy, we are helping teachers to build professional courses, to learn the technology, to understand the equipment and how to use it, and how to better communicate and educate their people.
That's great. And is this for just quilters or just knitters, or can it really be for any kind of craft business?
Anybody who uses their hands to make things and loves it so much that they just have to share with people, that they want to teach what they do, can learn what we do. We talk all about any kind of teaching that is hands-on, how to film it, how to share it, how to edit your own film. it's a pretty amazing community of professional development and online education. Again, available to anybody who teaches hands-on crafts.
Yeah, and I think it's great because figuring out the technology for this and how to edit and even just how to organize a course, it can be pretty challenging on your own.
It can be. And we have everything from full overviews to equipment reviews to a masterclass that holds your hand through every step of the way. People are often so surprised at how much easier it is to film and edit your own online classes than you would think.
Yeah, that's great. Okay, Lyric, thank you for telling us about this. And how can people get more information and sign up?
We would love you to join us. We have a 2-week free trial period at A4VT. That's A4VT.com, the Academy for Virtual Teaching.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much, Lyric.
It's been a pleasure.
Thank you so much, the Academy for Virtual Teaching. And now back to my conversation with Morgan. What led you to decide to leave the corporate world and to venture out on your own, and especially to start a craft kit company? Because that's a special kind of company, and the Crafter's Box is not just a kit company. As we said earlier, it's many different things. But talk about that transition where you sort of had the first seed of the idea and leading up to actually like leaving your corporate job and deciding to do this as a job.
Yeah. So within that span of time, I had actually been reassigned to a consulting project in Texas, and I decided to leave the company so that I wouldn't have to start traveling to Texas 5 days a week. And I ended up working as the director of marketing for an engineering company up in the Bay Area, kind of on the outskirts of Silicon Valley at the time. And I became a much more, experienced marketer in marketing these really cool motors and drives that ultimately were in, SpaceX was one of our customers, and Google self-driving cars, and also everyday objects like printers and whatnot. But what I found is that while I loved the marketing side of it, this was when, paid ads and Google AdWords and whatnot were not readily used, and everybody was just learning how to use them and so forth. And I just dove, head into all the things and built trade show booths and whatever the company needed on the marketing side, training, all videos, whatever they needed. And I realized that I had no passion for the widget that I was helping to sell. But if I could apply what I had learned through the past, 10 years in this space, in the marketing space, to something that I was truly passionate about, that was exciting. So when, and actually my husband is a much more adventurous individual than I, and he was an architect by trade, practiced architecture for 3 years, and said, I don't like this anymore. And one day just pivoted, totally, switched gears and started a food truck company that is now a thriving, awesome food truck company here in San Diego. And I just remember being like, whoa, you just jumped, how did you do that? That's so brave. And I really struggled with jumping because, all the safety nets and I needed that, that assurance that I would land well. And so finally, after my third daughter's birth, I heeded some of my husband's advice. I took the skills that I had been, honing on the marketing side and said, okay, I think I can do this for the crafting space in a really, really unique way. So I built a business plan, and I came up with how I would pitch the concept of the Crafter's Box, what artists I would reach out to, and so forth. And then I became very brave, and I jumped. And I say that with a little bit of asterisk, because I kept my corporate job part-time for probably 8 months, and I cut back my hours to 20 hours a week with them, and 20 hours a week focusing on building what I had dreamed up with the Crafter's Box. But I would have never done that had I not been really encouraged by the people who love me in life to just try, just go and try. What's the worst thing that happens? It doesn't work and you go back to what you were doing before, or, you're on to the next adventure.
And what need did you see in the market that you were filling? In other words, what was missing in the craft world that you were like, okay, I see an avenue here to build something that's going to fill this sort of gap?
There were two defining moments that really kind of made the idea feel very like a good, this idea has legs, I can build on this. The first was, so I'm working for a company up in the Bay Area and I'm flying back and forth probably once a month or every 6 weeks. And on one of those particular trips, I had all three of my kiddos. My plane, I remember, landed at the end of the day on a Thursday, and I was gearing up for a weekend project. I decided the project that I was going to work on that coming weekend, with my, if I can set the scene, I have an outdoor table at home. I get my hot cup of coffee while the kids are still sleeping. I have this creative time on a Saturday morning to do something that's just for me. And I really tried to do that back in the day as often as humanly possible. So on a Thursday night, I'm preparing for that Saturday morning, and I can smell the coffee, and I'm excited for my Saturday morning, and I need to make this happen. And I'm at a Michael's or a Joann's or a large craft store in San Diego, trying to find the pieces for this like leather and turquoise and gold necklace that I wanted to make, that I had seen somewhere before, maybe on Pinterest or something like that. And I was just going to make it myself rather than buy it. And I was looking for the right gauge wire, and I was looking for the right, this, that, and the other. And the quality of materials, I wasn't landing in the right spot. I couldn't find what I was looking for. I had 3 little kids about to overturn this cart like at 9 p.m. in this, craft store. And I was like, man, there's got to be a better way to do this. And so anyway, I basically bought out the jewelry out and was like, I'll return whatever I don't need. I gotta get out of here. The kids are gonna, start tearing little jewelry clips off of the wall. Of course, you never really make all of those returns at a craft store. So I think I probably still have like half of the project or the unused pieces still like in the jewelry area of my crafting space at home. But Saturday morning comes and I set out all of my tools and materials, and the gauge of wire keeps snapping, and the beads are not the right size for, the different components that I had purchased. And I just remember being so frustrated. So that was like impetus number one of like, man, there's got to be a better way to curate tools and materials for those who are maybe not experts in every single medium, but they know what to buy. They can go in to a project knowing that what they have just invested money into will result in the project that they're hoping to make. The second one was that while San Diego is an awesomely creative space and we have artists coming through teaching live workshops on a regular basis, it's not a huge hub of live workshops. And if you miss, there are artists who do sort of like like book tours, but they're crafting, and they teach how to do oil pastels in 15 different cities over the course of a month. And it's like, if you miss that artist coming to San Diego, you miss the opportunity to learn from them. You miss that, that chance to kind of like schedule time on your calendar and go into a studio space and, learn under the guise of an expert that you've been admiring, through a Instagram community or Pinterest community or whatever it might be. And that happened to be a couple of times just because life and kids and so forth. I was like, man, there's got to be, what if I could build really beautifully produced video workshops that paired with the tools and materials that these expert artists, professional artists, have vetted. So they've been through the experience of all the snapping wire, and they've used their years of professionalism to determine the correct tools and materials to actually invest in. And what if we could guide people on the maker journey, if they're starting from scratch in a new medium, especially, so that frustration is not an occurrence for them. And that's kind of where the idea started. and I pitched that to probably a dozen artists and said, I'd love to work with you to do this. And the benefit for you is that instead of traveling to those 15 different cities, you get to record a workshop video that you can then release to your entire community. What do you think of that idea? And I had ultimately 6 artists who said yes. I'm sure I pitched more than 12 then. A lot of artists said, no, that's not for me, not right now. This was all very new. The idea of what I was suggesting was pretty new. And I had 6 artists who said yes, and we tried it out. We filmed 6 workshops with basically just me and a good friend here in San Diego and my executive assistant, my other job. And the 3 of us launched with the very first, kit. And we had an amazing artist lead the way. Marianne Moody was our very first artist. So she naturally brought a really wonderful community of weavers. And then every time we launched with a new artist, they would introduce their community to the Crafters Box. And that's sort of how it got the ball rolling.
Yeah. And I think that collaboration, right? Because this is a business built on collaboration, so that every time a new month comes, a new collaboration is released. And so it really helps to build the brand and to build brand awareness and brand trust when, you're really partnering basically with all different artists, and it just continues to grow.
Yep, exactly. And there's also, I think on the trust side, we have had customers that have been with us since day one. And that is the value that we hear most frequently through, our feedback channels, is that there is this trust that if an artist puts their name behind a particular tool or particular technique, and we put our name behind that same tool and technique, they know that they're getting the best version of that through this experience. And that's huge. Like that is something that, any business would value a million times over and would work so hard to never, ever lose that particular trust with its customers.
And so what does each of these releases include? Obviously, it's including this kit, right, which has the materials to make a specific project. It includes a partnership with the artist who's curated and told you, okay, these are the materials, these are the tools that need to go into this kit. What else is included?
So the anywhere between usually 30 to 90 minute video is sort of what leads each workshop. So you are learning on your own time or with a group of friends, like on a set Tuesday night when you all watch the video together and you stream it on your living room TV and everyone has their kits out. So the video is huge. The curated kit of tools and materials. I mean, we are really thoughtful in that, if you're just trying out, we'll keep going with the jewelry making analogy. If you're just trying out jewelry making, you don't need to invest in like a, 400-yard spool of gold wire to try making, one necklace. You may find that you enjoyed it, for the first time and you're not going to do it again. And so, our team, we've like really honed in on the efficiency of sending you just what you need. And we have a team here in San Diego that preps every single one of these boxes and breaks down those bulk purchases so that you only need to buy what you need for your actual, and that's part of the kit, obviously. So it's a very highly curated kit of the tools and materials that the artist would like to send along. We have a maker chat at the end of the month that where once you've done your project, you can get together with the community and jump on a conversation. We have an awesome moderator in-house who leads a conversation with the artist, and you have the opportunity to ask any questions in a live environment where the artist can go back, oh, let me show you how to do that stitch again. Or, you know what, you learned, in my workshop, I taught how to dip taper candles. Today, let me teach you a new technique, but but in a live space. And that's a lot of fun because that's where you get the community and the chatter and the conversation, and you really get to know the artist's personality. We have a podcast We have a community group where a lot of makers share their finished projects or the variations on their finished projects. And then I'll just add as well is that once that kit comes out of our monthly subscription, it lands in our marketplace, which is where you can just go and peruse, through 100 different workshops and choose, pick and choose what exactly you want to try this, this coming summer or whatnot, or gift to a friend or so forth.
And what about replenishment? So you talked about the gold wire. Have you sort of figured out a way, if I wanted to make more of that one necklace or whatever, is there a way to just buy the material for that particular, or should I buy the whole, because if you buy the workshop, you're buying the whole thing again.
Right. It's been our vision for a very long time. So we are very soon to announce that so through the process over the last 7 years of this business, the Crafters Box has remained kind of the core of what we do. It's our sweet spot. It's what we do really, really, really well. In the growth of the space, we're actually keeping the Crafters Box as our subscription and building a much larger brand under the umbrella of Crafter. So the domain for that is crafter.com. And the goal, like you mentioned in the introduction just a bit ago, is to be the home and hub for makers, to offer community, to offer a really robust marketplace, to offer even more digital workshops and digital patterns, and to support artists in being able to, post their own content as well for sale. And that's kind of where we're growing into. Right now, we exist in the value proposition of workshop kits. So we have extension kits where, say you learn to make a really beautiful gold disc necklace. Your next project might be our extension kit, which is an anklet or a bracelet, but it is still a kit in some capacity. We do have individual lines of yarn. We work with this amazing mill in Italy, and we're the only distributors of this yarn, and they actually custom make it for us. So we do have we have an independent line of woodworking tools like looms and frames and, stretchable punch needle frames and tools that we have found to be quite difficult to get here in the States as well. But for the most part, we're not quite there yet. The replenishment piece, it would be amazing if that is something that we can, move into pretty soon in terms of I think what you mean by I want to purchase individual spools of wire or something along that line.
Right. Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And as far as the tools that are included and the materials that are included, I mean, you talked about shopping in this big box craft store and being somewhat disappointed with some of the quality. But when you're an artist who, like Marianne Moody, who focuses entirely on weaving, you, as you said, you kind of pare down exactly which tools are the best, which materials are the best, but you're an artist, so you're investing in sometimes in expensive tools and materials because those are the ones that, truly are the best. When you're creating a kit that's for more of a mass market audience who aren't professional artists, I guess my question is how do you figure out how to replicate what Marianne Moody wants, her students to use, but still in a way that is going to be affordable for a first timer?
Yeah, that's a good question. And we've tried to solve that problem in two different ways. The first is there's an immediate acknowledgement that some of these crafting mediums cannot be put into the price point of our subscription box. It wouldn't be possible. And so we launched a line of premium workshops a couple of years ago with the goal of focusing on mediums that wouldn't fit into our existing model. And that includes, one of my favorite premium workshops is building a soldering studio in your garage to do stained glass art. Those are the types of tools and materials you're investing in, not because you think this will be something fun to try once, but because you have an an interest in continuing to make, and you're willing to put in the time and resources to, carve out that little space in your garage to keep going. So that's one way we do that, so that we're still including the tools and materials that an artist would recommend without undervaluing them in any way. The other way that we do that is we learn how actually to make a lot of those tools and materials in-house. So, for example, with Marianne Moody's workshop, this was our very first workshop. So we collaborated with a husband and wife woodworking team to build a loom to Marianne's specifications. But by overseeing that loom production from start to finish, we were really able to control the price point of it to make sure that it was something that we could put in a kit that ultimately would yield the results that Marianne wanted. It was her stamp of approval, but not something that we were purchasing, from a loom maker that was out there. And actually, we still work with that husband and wife team to this day, and they have a woodworking studio that builds many of the tools that go into our kits. And by being the manufacturer of them and not just a distributor of those tools and materials, we're able to extend a much more appropriate price point than, say, if we were buying from a vendor or distributor. Obviously, we can't do that with really high quality oil paints and that sort of thing. But that's one way that we're able to make sure that some of these kits can fit into that price point with really keeping in mind exactly what the artist intends.
I think having access, to the artists, like live access, the workshop is pre-recorded, but the live access piece at the end of the month with this maker chat is really brilliant, because that's a piece that, you don't necessarily get. I'm thinking of some of the other high quality video workshops in the craft space that are out there, such as like Creative Bug, for example. You're going to get that beautifully produced video with this project, etc. You're not getting the kit, so that's a difference, but you're also not getting that live access with the maker. So that's kind of like I think paying for access like that is something that is easy for somebody to say, okay, yeah, sign me up.
Yep, and that's that is the one missing piece from not participating in a workshop, like going into an artist studio and taking that workshop with the artist, is the ability to say, hey, did I do this right? Or can you tell me more about, XYZ? And that was, I would say, when we first launched, that was a hesitancy of a lot of customers or a lot of students, just being able to connect with the artist if and when they had a question along the way. So that has been a favorite tool of ours from the very beginning. And why have a podcast? Because I think that, you're very multi-modality from like a teaching perspective. You've got video, and then you've got the kit, you've got products, and then you're also getting audio. So that's kind of interesting. I think a lot of businesses would have skipped that piece, but why did you feel it was important? And what is the podcast like? So the podcast from the very beginning, you really get to know the artist through their actual workshop video. So once you have purchased the full workshop and you have the kit of tools and materials, laid out across your kitchen table, and you're opening, your computer to watch the video, it's a one-on-one experience with the artist, and you can pause and you can fast forward and rewind and really take it and do whatever you would like with that workshop, close your computer and open it the next day, or keep working on a project over a couple of weeks. The podcast is pre-purchase. So before you have that one-on-one experience with the artist, you actually get to learn about the artist's inspiration, what their studio space is like, a typical day for them. You hear from the artists in their own words what they love about their craft. And we found that especially valuable in the beginning when you weren't really getting access to meeting the artist until you had already purchased the workshop. So it was a great introduction of, do I want to learn about this craft? Do I want to purchase this workshop in the artist's own words? And I love that because they get to talk about why they're passionate about what they do. What are you looking for in an artist when you are, choosing somebody to work with in this collaborative way? Because it's a lot of things that they are
doing. They're doing a podcast interview. They're doing a 30 to 90 minute video with you. They're curating the kit. They're doing the maker chat. Maybe there's other things that they're doing as well from a marketing perspective. But I'm sure there are listeners to this show who are thinking, oh gosh, I would love this opportunity. What do I need to do to be considered for something like this?
Oh, that's such a good question. We have a lot of interest from a lot of different artists. And ultimately, just with the size that we are and the resources that we have, we can only launch somewhere between, today, 20 and 30 workshops a year. So we're really thoughtfully thinking about, the calendar lineup of workshops and the variety of mediums and how frequently we're introducing a fiber versus a fine art versus, more of like an industrial craft like leather or metal. And making sure that there's an adequate amount of variety. We love niche crafts that are resurrecting some sort of historical, traditional making technique that maybe has even been lost. Like, we worked with Lindsay Campbell to bring Pibione weaving, which is this a type of weaving that's practiced off of Italy and Sardinia, and with the exception of a few artisans on the island, is not really known. And that to us was like, oh, this is so cool. We absolutely have to talk about this type of crafting. You mentioned basket weaving at the beginning. That's one of our most popular workshops. We have a variety of different types of basket weaving because it's not something that you can easily and readily find out there in the world in terms of education and on the workshop side. So niche crafts are amazing. Artists that have a comfort level with teaching, that's not every human being for sure. They really understand how to break down their steps and communicate through film what they're doing. We also have an amazing crew that helps to produce our workshop videos to help the artists with that. An artist being very on trend. So through their portfolio, whether that's through their, what they share through their social media channels or whatnot. But they have captured what people are seeking to make at that time. We really hit it right on the head with, for an example, punch needle. When punch needle was brand new and nobody knew what punch needle was, we reached out to Arona Kunaraj, who is just this awesome artist up in Toronto, and said, hey, we're really into rug hooking right now and punch needle. Can you build a workshop for us? And sure enough, when that workshop launched, it was at the height of when everyone wanted to try punch needle. So there's an art to figuring out what are people exploring right now. But yeah, it's not an exact science for sure. Sometimes it has to do with schedule and availability. Sometimes it has to do with purely with, oh gosh, when's the last, we can't launch 2 embroidery workshops, less than 6 months apart. So we have to pass on working with an incredible artist because, we've already allocated 2 workshops this year to that medium. But yeah, we just we group together as a team and figure out, okay, what's next and what are the ideal mediums that, we want to explore as a company.
And what does that team look like right now as far as, I'm imagining a warehouse. I think maybe you're there now. I'm not sure. And so because there's quite a lot to pick and pack here as far as, replenishing all these older kits and then also having the new stuff on hand. So there's got to be probably people working in sourcing, I'm imagining. And anyway, tell us a little bit about sort of what the team looks like. Absolutely.
So today we're a team of 22 people. That includes our incredible logistics team. We have 2 warehouse spaces. They're both mixed use. So our offices are at the front of both of those. And we kind of have a shared office space that we have had a couple of artists come in and local to San Diego artists and put in some really beautiful murals. The goal is to create a creative space where people feel creative within the office environment as well. Our 2 warehouses are divided up by production and fulfillment. So the production team is solely responsible for receiving all of the unique, what we call, child SKUs or the components of a kit, and to to manage all of the sub-assembly. So maybe we're including a yard of like a linen flax fabric, and they are cutting the fabric and separately, wrapping up each piece of, flax linen and tissue paper and putting it into a kit that also includes maybe block printing supplies. Once those kits are complete, the boxes move from our production to our fulfillment. And our fulfillment is kind of what you would picture like a traditional, shelving, units where all of the different workshop kits, workshop extensions, if we sell individual items underneath that workshop, like more frames or more yarn, and where the pick and packing and shipping happens. And then we have an office space where a good chunk of our team still works remote from reworking everything during the pandemic. And but most of our office comes in a couple of days a week so that we can work together in community. And we've got a marketing, a couple of people in each of our teams that involves marketing and procurement, customer service. We have an incredible customer service team. If anybody listening has been one of our customers, they've probably interacted with Brianna or Molly or Candace, and they just knock it out of the park in terms of the love they show on our customers. And yeah, it's pretty traditional in that on that side of things.
And was the pandemic, of the kit creators that I've spoken to, the pandemic turned out, after a very scary start, to be actually really good for business?
It was I can't think of a better word, but other than like a two-edged sword, we probably sold through the inventory that we had on our shelves, what traditionally would have lasted us an extended period of time, maybe in like 4 or 5 months. And that is really awesome. But then the supply side of the pandemic almost shut the business down in the sense that we couldn't re-kit because so many of our kits have, 30 subcomponent items. And
right.
If we're missing 4 of them, we can't, or 1 of them, and it's a key ingredient, we can't re-kit that. And many of our workshops to this day are still out of stock because of issues related to supply chain, the niche suppliers that do supply us. We've learned a lot in terms of how to, work within a challenging environment where you can't just call up any maker and say, hey, we need, X amount of this in 3 months, because now that's 9 months. And now that's this supplier went out of business and we need to find a new supplier or other. So it's been challenging.
And all of this sounds expensive because it's a lot of moving parts and a lot of people. Have you sought outside capital, or has this been bootstrapped from the beginning?
So I bootstrapped it for the first 4.5 years. And then I had the opportunity to go through a really neat incubator program. We were chosen as a female-founded company out of 800 other female-founded companies to incubate under the Rent the Runway co-founders. So I had an office in Jenny Fleiss's space in New York for a couple of months, and that was a really eye-opening, interesting experience. And then the summer after that, we participated in Techstars, which is one of 2 really well-known accelerators in the U.S. Techstars is international, but that really put a company through 12 weeks of programming on how to grow and how to kind of step up to the next level from a very niche business to growing a much wider audience and offering, much more complex offering on the tech side and so forth. And through that process, we did bring on outside capital. We raised a seed round, and today we have investors.
Okay. And as far as the tech side of this, you need specific software to be able to run a subscription box effectively. Any thoughts to share on what has been sort of helpful to you from the tech side to get this kind of business running smoothly?
I think this is like across all tech landscape, but anytime you can use a software tool out of the box without having to majorly customize it through dev work and so forth, that should be the way that you design your business for at least a while, at least the first few years, or until you hit an inflection point where you can bring on professional developers to maintain a site. Anytime you start to customize and, you build your own tools within the program, major website updates, major plugin updates.
And everything breaks.
Everything breaks. And you sometimes can't figure out why because you've done too much customization. So yeah, my word of advice is, and we did this for probably the first 5 or 6 years, and then we began to layer on custom tools. But for as long as you can exist in hey, this is how WordPress or Shopify or whoever intended this tool to be used, you'll have way fewer headaches.
Yeah, exactly. If you can almost, in some ways, build around what is available, maybe having to make some modifications to your initial idea just to make the existing software tools work well in their out of the box form. I think that's really good advice. Yeah, and that's neat that you were able to do those accelerator programs. Do you recommend that sort of thing to people who are really looking to scale? And at what point? I mean, I think there's probably some people who do this or try to do something like that before launch. But you were 4 to 5 years in when you decided to, take on capital and investors and do a seed round, et cetera, and also go through this incubator program. And so I don't know, I guess my question is do you recommend people do that and at what point?
Yeah. So it's a very different style of running a business. And I really enjoyed the lifestyle business that was the Crafters Box for the first 4 or 5 years. We had built an awesome customer community. We worked with incredible artists. We had a small team. As soon as we raised capital, because we wanted to take on this bigger crafter vision, and we realized that there was a desire and a need in the space for a home that serviced all of the needs of the maker, the modern maker, that was when I sought out capital. But you get on a different train in terms of how you run your business and how quickly you're investing in marketing and growth and hiring and so forth. So it really, it just really depends on the founder and their intention for the business. And if what you're looking for is bigger than you can do within your own means, I am all about bootstrapping. I think determining product market fit and going through the trenches is like an incredible, value to, being a founder and growth. But if you found that and you're like, okay, I'm ready to figure out how we meet a wider audience, raising capital is a wonderful way to do it, but you are beholden to a brand new group of shareholders. And you have to be ready for that.
Yeah, it changes the dynamic. It changes the expectation and in a lot of different ways. So, okay, I think that's really good advice. And I want to make sure we get to your recommendations, Morgan, because you have 3 really good ones. And actually, I think you might have 4. So we'll get to those now. So the first one is that you are making a baby quilt. And I'm actually starting a baby quilt right now, too.
Oh, yes. Okay. So on the baby quilt side, this poor little guy. I have a 5-month-old. He will be 5 months tomorrow. Poor little guy. I started this quilt when he was probably a few weeks old. And he will probably get this quilt when he is maybe 8 months.
I was going to say 16 years old, but that's fine.
Yeah, I do that too. Thankfully, it's a small one. I'm hand piecing this quilt, so I'm not using a sewing machine at all. I am not an experienced quilter, but I do like to hand sew and hand stitch and hand quilt. And so I've designed this really pretty linen quilt, and I will just plug away at it. And each time that I've been taking it on little vacation opportunities. So if we take a drive for a weekend up the coast, in the car there I am hand stitching, and that's how I do craft projects these days. I do not get my Saturday mornings with a hot cup of coffee and a brand new craft project anymore. But I do get moments to be able to dive into. And it's a pretty awesome experience to be able to walk into the fulfillment center and be like, okay, let's work with clay this weekend, and be able to just dive into a clay workshop right away. And, no longer the big hobby stores, but being able to go into my own warehouse space and say, oh, this workshop is going to be so good. I can't wait to try this. But yes, I'm working on a baby quilt, and I can't wait for, hopefully my son will not be too big to use it by the time it's done.
And also a wall hanging that you're working on, or you just finished, that's 48 inches. Yes.
Oh my gosh. I was so proud to get this guy off the loom. It was actually, I thought it was a beautiful work of art on the loom. I had the crafter's box has a 48 by 48 inch standing maple, hardwood maple loom. And I brought it home, and I started this project probably like 2 years ago. And I just left it halfway done for years. And when the kids would play in the living room, like on a weekend or something like that, I might work away at it, and I might add like an inch or two here or there. But I finally we had like a Memorial Day party, and I was like, I got to get this thing off the loom. And so I had a date that I needed to get it finished by, and I completed it. And it's all made out of just ecru or natural white fibers of all different widths. So it's not one of our kits, but it's our roving and our arm knitting yarn, which are really chunky fibers. And then it's got, bulky weight yarn and pencil size yarn and very thin yarn and warp. And I just wove all of those different in one colorway together, and it now hangs on our dining room wall, and it's way cool. It looks like maybe a blanket hanging on the wall, and the textures of it are just awesome. And I'm so glad I finally got it off the loom.
And you've been going thrifting as well with a friend.
Yes. Okay. So this is something that I really dug when I was a lot younger, and then I just didn't have time for any kind of treasure hunting for a very long time. But where my daughters actually go to dance, when it's my turn to take them to dance on Wednesdays, I have an hour to kill, and there's a couple of really great little antique and thrift locations. And I didn't realize how much I missed like the art of the hunt. So I highly recommend, if you're not necessarily a creative person on the art sense, that you want to get your hands dirty, stop into some place that allows you just to kind of rummage and explore, and that will satisfy some of those creative needs in a big way.
Oh yeah, I agree with that 100%. And then you start your day with a podcast from NPR that's called Up First.
Yes. This is I also read a couple of news articles as part of my wake up routine, which some people are super anti and some people are super pro, but it's a way for me to start the day with a perspective of what's happening in the world. And I found this podcast, which is 15 minutes long. I listen to it while I'm doing my makeup every morning and brushing my teeth. And I just feel like I know a little bit more about what's happening around me. And that means a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. And especially when you later in the day, run into somebody and they reference something that's gone on in the news and you're like, oh yeah, I know something. I have something to say. You're not just standing there blank, what yep. What are they talking about? So exactly. Yeah, I think it's really helpful. So Morgan, thank you so much for taking the time to be on the Craft Industry Alliance podcast. It was great talking to you.
It was a pleasure. Thank you for having me, Abby.
And you've been listening to the Craft Industry Alliance podcast. I'm Abby Glassenberg. Today's episode was brought to you by the Academy for Virtual Teaching. If you're curious how virtual teaching can increase your profits in a scalable and manageable way, learn more at the Academy for Virtual Teaching. Creating online educational videos is a lot easier than you think, and you already have most of the equipment you need. In fact, the Academy invites you to join them for a 2-week free trial. While you're there, check out the 5-day promotional video challenge where they'll teach you to film and edit a short video for your product or workshop using nothing but your phone. Join them at a4vt.com/teach. That's vt.com/teach. Come join the fun and become part of the Academy for Virtual Teaching's supportive community of creative entrepreneurial educators. Thank you so much, the Academy for Virtual Teaching. Craft Industry Alliance is a community for craft professionals. When you become a member of Craft Industry Alliance, you get in-depth coverage of craft industry news, the opportunity to connect with fellow professionals for advice and support, and access to an educational library filled with ideas, tools, and resources to help you as you build your business. Join us at craftindustrｙalliance.org. Thank you so much, and I'll see you next time.